Lift up your eyes upon this day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for a new beginning. Do not be wedded forever to fear. The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps of change here on the pulse of this fine day. I greet you with these words from someone that I know is dear to your heart, Dr. Maya Angelou. And I would like to express my deep appreciation and gratitude for the opportunity to be with you this morning. When we found out we were coming to the Bay Area as part of our book tour, I felt that there was no more important place than Glide to be able to share this message. Because indeed, you are already living the beloved community that my father ferociously pursued. I thank you so much. It is so heartwarming. It allows me to know that my father's spirit is alive and well. Thank you, Dr. Williams, for this opportunity. Thank you, Glide, for all that you do in this community and in the world to keep the dream alive. Now, before I go any further, I do have to make one thing perfectly clear. I am a 100% dyed-in-the-wool, card-carrying believer in the dream. That's capital T, capital D. The dream that led my father from a busboy cot in Montgomery, Alabama, to the vision of the mountaintop in Memphis, Tennessee. That's the dream I believe in. It's a dream about freedom. Freedom from oppression, from exploitation, from prejudice, from poverty, from violence. The dream of a nation and a world where each and every child can have the opportunity to be the very best that they can be. Now, I know there are the folks who, for whatever reasons, have chosen not to believe. I call them bystanders, standing as they do on the sidelines of the great issues of our time. I know none of them are here with us this morning. But perhaps you might recognize one of these three groups. I think they tend to fall into three groups. The first group I like to call the woulda, coulda, shoulda folks. I see you do recognize them. Now, you know these folks can really fool you because when they talk, they sound pretty dedicated. But when it's time to get down to business, time to do some real work, they're the first ones out the door. That is, if they showed up in the first place. Girlfriend, they'll tell you, I would have come to the meeting if I could have, but you should have called me. And then I would have asked my brother-in-law to ask his sister if her best friend could run me back. Believe me, I would have, could have, should have. Whew, these folks are a trip. They can walk the walk. Excuse me, they can talk the talk. But you're in for a real disappointment if you expect them to walk the talk. And then, of course, there are the can't folks. For whatever reasons, they've decided that that they just can't do any dream work. And you know, I'm always saddened when I meet these people, when I speak with them, because you see, they sit back and they hold their hands, wringing their hands, hoping and praying that somebody, anybody, will come along and deliver the dream. But you see, I know, I have seen it so many times in my experience. You have to take at least one step. You have to do your best, and then God will step in and work through you to do the rest. Now, if those who can't make me sad, then those who won't make me mad. They frustrate me the most, because in many instances they understand the importance of the dream. They know what it will take to get us there. They even have the resources in many instances, but they just won't do anything. Caught up in greed or fear or conformity. And I guess the worst excuse of all, well, it's been like this always and nothing's going to change anyhow, so why bother? Oh yes, I have heard it all. And you know what? I am still a believer in the dream. Now, some of that is because I am the great-granddaughter, the granddaughter, the daughter, the niece, the sister, the cousin of ministers. When I was growing up in Atlanta, Georgia, I must have spent 8 days a week in the church. So my faith has been nurtured and confirmed for as long as I can remember. I was taught that the universal order of peace with justice will one day be restored. I know in my heart that the dream will be realized, that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final say. So I am a believer. And another reason, of course, is because my parents, Martin Luther King Jr. was, and Coretta Scott King still is, modern-day architects of the strategies for achieving the dream. I am a child of the dream. But another reason I believe is because I choose to believe. That's right. I choose to believe. You see, choosing is a very powerful act. And it is available to all of us. It does not matter who you are, what your circumstances are. Sometimes it may be difficult to choose, but in every instance you have that option. You can choose between understanding over anger. You can choose patience over impatience. You can choose compassion over condemnation, action over inaction. I have chosen to believe, and that choice gives meaning to every other choice I make. You see, that's how all of our lives are fashioned, one choice at a time. What makes each of our lives unique is the individual set of choices that we make. Choice. It's a powerful tool. And the alternative, well, you do know what happens to people who stand in the middle of the road. Eventually, they get run over. During the 1950s and 60s, African-American men and women made some choices, often dangerous ones, and they were joined by men and women of all races, of goodwill, and together, tremendous progress was made toward the betterment of our nation. As we celebrate during this month, Black History Month, it is imperative, I think, for us to remember the tremendous sacrifices that were made during the Civil Rights Movement to bring us to where we are today. Martin Luther King Jr.'s leadership made us look at ourselves as a nation, as individuals, black, white, red, yellow, and brown, rich and poor, and we began to transform, and we reordered the conditions of many of our communities. The Civil Rights Movement really signaled some of the most important changes in the history of America. We must never forget those sacrifices that were made. But you know, in many instances, we have forgotten. Our memories have blurred. The problems of today are so complicated that yesterday is but a vague memory. Those of you in the audience who are my age, that's 39. And hold it. We were babies then. The young people sitting here this morning, those of you in the audience who are 36 years of age and younger, you were not born when Martin Luther King Jr. walked with us. And for some of you, the civil rights movement may seem like ancient history. I was on the road and a little boy came up to me. He was about 6 years old. He was so precious. He said, "Is it true? Is it true? Are you really Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter?" And I said, "Yes," and he looked at me like I was a ghost. "Then why aren't you dead?" Eons and eons of years ago. I know it may seem like ancient history to you young people, but it was not that long ago. Only 40 years, the ugly images of segregation surrounded us in America. Sitting on the back of the bus, the for white or for colored only signs, the lynchings, the cross burnings. And then during the course of the struggle, the snapping dogs and the searing fire hoses. They all seem like misty images from a horror story that we may have perhaps have read about or have seen on television. But the civil rights movement was not a mirage. It was not a documentary. It was not even a television special. It was live and in living color. Phil Petrie, in his poem, "It Happened in Montgomery," beautifully captures the spirit that triggered this movement. He slammed on the brakes, turned around and grumbled. But she was tired that day. Weariness was in her bones. And so the things she'd done yesterday and yesteryear, on her work days, church days, nothing to do, guess I'll go and visit Sister Annie days, she thought she'd never do again. And he growled once more. So she said, "No, sir, I'm staying right here." And he gruffly grabbed her, pulled and pushed her, and sharply shoved her through the doors. The news shushed through the littered streets, slipped into the crowded churches, slimmered onto the unmagnoliaed side of town. And while the men talked and talked and talked, she, who was fed up and took a stand that day, she was glad she'd done it. Her soul was satisfied, because Lord knows, a little walking never hurt nobody. That woman, of course, was, yes, it was. And because she chose to stand up that day by remaining seated on that bus, December 1st, 1955, she triggered a movement that propelled Martin Luther King Jr. into leadership, a movement where the African-American citizens of Montgomery came together, and for 384 days, they stuck together, and without using any violence, they brought the Montgomery, Alabama bus system to its knees. A movement. Yes. A movement that would change America forever. All because she chose to stand up. What did I tell you about the power of choice? Even as we pay homage to that movement that brought us so much hope, we have to acknowledge that we are living in some difficult times. We as a nation, we as humanity, we have not reached the promised land. We are still wandering around bumping into each other in the wilderness of ignorance, of hatred, of greed. Racism, sexism, homophobia, poverty, violence persist. And the dream, that magnificent dream fiercely pursued by Martin Luther King Jr., is still a dream. Humorist George Carlin lays out our dilemma quite cleverly. He says, the paradox of our time in history is that we have taller buildings but shorter tempers, wider freeways but narrower viewpoints. We spend more but have less. We buy more but enjoy less. We have bigger houses, smaller families, more conveniences but less time. We have more degrees, less sense. More knowledge, but less judgment. More experts, yet more problems. More medicine, but less wellness. We drink too much, smoke too much, spend too recklessly, laugh too little, drive too fast, get too angry, stay up too late, get up too tired, read too little, watch TV too much, and pray too seldom. We have multiplied our possessions but reduced our values. We talk too much, love too seldom, and hate too often. We've learned how to make a living but not how to live. Truly, it is time for a change. But you see, I believe we have some choices. We can throw up our hands in frustration and despair and decide it's hopeless. We can bury our heads in the sand and ignore the truth. We can choose to write off, as some of our citizens have done, the millions of our own citizens who are hungry or homeless or illiterate. We can choose to believe that we will never create a world where boys and girls, men and women can live together as brothers and sisters. Or we can choose to get up off of our apathy and complacency and meet the challenges. We can choose to believe in the possibility of a better world and do our share in bringing that into being. Through technology, we have made of the world a neighborhood. Now it is time to make of it a sister and a brotherhood. My father's utterance rings persistently. Either we will learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish together as fools. I believe we each have a role to play in moving us forward. One of the most important and lasting lessons that I learned from my parents and other determined men and women like Dr. Williams, like Jan, people across this country who have put their lives on the line, who have in season and out of season been there for us and with us. I know that the individual can make a difference. And working in cooperation and in community with others and with the power of God, you can even move mountains. You can make the choice to be the very best you can be and look for and encourage the best in others. You can make the choice to believe that you can be a force for peace, justice, freedom, love, knowing that you have the power of God operating in your life. You may not change the world, but perhaps you can impact your community or your family or even just one individual. Any and every effort that you make on behalf of peace, freedom, justice, love is significant. What it means is that what we need to pray for many times is not only for faith to move mountains, but for faith to move us. Move us to do the things that need to be done. We must be doers of what we sing, pray, and read. We must put some legs, some arms, some feet on our prayers. You know, they say there are three types of people in the world. There are those who stand on the sidelines and watch things happen. They are the few who get involved, roll up their sleeves, and make things happen. And they are the many who don't know what happened. What kind of person are you? It's time to make a choice. As for me, one of the things that I'm doing to make a difference is through this very special book project. And I would like to invite my co-creator, Yolanda Tate, to join me. Welcome. I met Yolanda about 14 months ago. She came to me with this incredible idea. A lot of people come to me with great ideas. I'm not able to always respond. But this made sense because this theme, the fact of our common humanity, is one that I have sounded through my work behind the podium, on my work as an actor on stage. And I saw this as a wonderful extension of so many things that I had already been doing. And so our intention with this book is to remind people who sometimes forget and to wake up those who don't know that we are all connected, that regardless of our differences, our racial, our religious, our cultural differences, we are all children of one God. There is a unity that binds all of us together. And so we have put together this collection of stories and poems that make you laugh and make you cry happy tears and get goosebumps and leave you feeling uplifted. We were blessed with contributions from Muhammad Ali, from Stevie Wonder, from Dr. Maya Angelou, from Robert Kennedy Jr., Margaret Cho, a host of others, talented writers who share very special magical moments in their lives where they made a heart connection with someone of a different race, a different religion, a different culture, a different background. At this time, Yolanda and I would like to share some of the truth treasures contained within.
This poem is titled Agape by Jimmy Ware. I am beautiful like a butterfly flittering here and there, blessed with the colors from many others when I shed my cocoon. My dreads are carefree, that's all right by me. I am those beautiful colors of my foremothers. You know, that multiracial facial, the one that you cannot get from a salon nor from a jar of Pond's. It gives me great joy to realize that brown eyes never made me blue, and blue eyes never made me green. With envy, it's not in me. My cousin sports a blonde curly afro. With pride, he loves the dark berry beauty by his side. Is this a meeting of the United Nations? Nah, just my family on vacation. We are simply family, beautiful like a rainbow, radiant wherever we go, loving and kind, understanding that the world needs more love. So we pour love and hope that it drenches you. Pass it on and on and on until we become one. Another talented poet we had is Stephen Manchester, who will take us for a walk in the clouds.
I walked amongst the clouds today, and then I took a seat to try to understand the world that spun beneath my feet. It was the grandest picture my eyes had ever seen. I couldn't make out colors except for blue and green, and yet I could see people, a whole race on the run. To tell the truth, from where I sat, they clearly moved as one. With fear, they searched for answers they thought were on the ground. And though they spoke in different tongues, they made the sweetest sound. They had the wrong perspective, with no way they could know. They are no individuals, but just parts of a whole. And so I made a wish for them, that someday they would see only when they really love is when they're really free. I'll dance amongst the stars tonight while others search in vain, for just above their point of view, there's no such thing as pain. During our process of development, which was an incredibly synchronistic, divinely ordered journey, in fact, many times we didn't quite know where to go or what to do. We were not sure about something, and we'd get an email, or the phone would ring, or someone would appear. And we're so thankful that we are really the vessels, the instruments through which God is spreading this message. One of the things that inspired us along the way was a Hasidic folktale that was shared with us, to us, by Reverend Ron Fox. A rabbi asked his students, "How can we tell when night has passed?"
One student says, "When it is possible to tell a dog from a wolf."
No.
Another responds, "When it is possible to identify the fruit on a tree." As each student responds, the rabbi shakes his head no. And one student finally cries out in frustration, "Then you tell us."
It is when you can look on the face of any man or woman and know that it is your brother or your sister. For unless you can see that, it is still night.